Welcome to the Critical Fools podcast. This week on episode 58, we'll be discussing a hidden gem, Michael Clayton, one of George Clooney's, I think, underrated performances. This film came out in 2007, I believe. It is directed by Tony Gilroy, who I don't really know. It was just very interesting to learn. I think he's made other films. I think he's made the Bourne films, and I think even one of the Star Wars ones. But his name didn't come to mind when I was rewatching this film. This is the second time I viewed the film. The first time I think I was more impressed by it because I was younger. I must have been 14 or 15. The second viewing, I realized that it's still entertaining, but we'll get into the critiques or maybe why this movie is not talked about as much. But yeah, I'm curious. Like, I know that you hadn't ever heard of this film, and I know that you've seen George Clooney films. I'm curious, what your initial thoughts and what did you think of the style and what do you think of his performance? Because I think he is really the seminal actor character in this film. I mean, the movie is is titled after a character.
Yeah, I would say this film would be nothing without George Clooney. I mean, I can't criticize anything regarding Clooney or his performance because he was great, to be honest. And I was trying to think of a movie that I've seen with George Clooney where I thought it was bad, and I really can't name one. I really liked another one he did. It's probably around this time, was Up in the Air as well. I don't know if you've seen that, Chris, but yeah,
I've seen that's good.
Always comes out with strong performances.
Yeah, I actually can't think of one either that I didn't like, but I haven't seen every George Clooney film. But yeah, this one he's one of the great actors and American actors. So but yeah, Up in the Air is good. That's a good candidate for a future episode, maybe one day. But yeah, so basically the backdrop of this story of this Michael Clayton guy is, he works as a law firm. It's implied that he's a lawyer, but really you learn that he's just a fixer. And he kind of, gets clients out of bad situations.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about some of those clients. But with his, I guess, his typical storytelling techniques, like his problem or his conflict is he has a lot of debt because he invested money in a restaurant with his brother who happens to be addicted to drugs, so it ended up being a terrible investment. And so the loan sharks are circling, and his brother isn't going to be able to pay him, so he has to figure out how to get the money. And he's hoping that maybe he can get a loan because he's worked 20 years at this law firm, 25 years. And he is their fixer. He's the guy that has to get his hands dirty. And so that's his personal problem. And also he's having to work this case where the financial firm is representing a mythical, if they're not a real company, I guess agricultural chemical company, something of that sort. And they're being sued by families who claim that the chemicals caused cancer and led to deaths. And obviously the CEO and the board and all the shareholders believe that's false. The families believe it's true, and this law firm has been tasked to defending, the company. But but again, part of the story is that the case that Michael Clayton is working on, he's in charge of, I guess, chaperoning a lawyer that seems to have gone off the rails. And we learned that might not be so clear cut, but basically, this lawyer has actually been doing playing double agent because at a certain point during the case, he believes. I don't know if I'm actually curious what your thoughts. Did he fall in love with his client, or not his client, the plaintiffs, or the plaintiff, or did he really maybe realize that he had a crisis of a consciousness finally after so many years working, or maybe it was both. I'm curious to get your thoughts in a sec, but I just want to wrap up this point that he ends up playing double agent and actually trying to help her win the case because and rightfully so, he believes this company is lying and that these chemicals are causing these weed killers are causing cancers.
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of both. Because you can tell he's been working on this for so long, so he has all the evidence. And once he's confronted with all the evidence, right, is tasked with defending a very corrupt company. And I think he just, in the end, based on, well, like when he saw all the damage, he could bring himself to go through and fully defend this company, which is why he switched sides. And it's kind of got him killed. But yeah, I think he also did develop some feelings for this woman who was one of the plaintiffs. But that's hard to prove because he did have like a lot of mental stress, mental breakdowns in this movie. So really, I mean, who knows?
So you mentioned that. So spoiler alert. The lawyer that is the double agent, Arthur is his name, does die. What did you think of his assassination scene? That was kind of
a great scene, to be honest.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
I mean, they basically, it was a two-man job. They wear gloves, and they are professional hitters. And they did it. They basically calmed him down and then gave him some like paralysis, like toxin. But they made sure to cover all of their tracks and make it look like it was a suicide. Even though, and I think Michael Clayton points this out. He's like, there was no note or something like that. So that made him, like, very suspicious. And you would think that they would have had like a note written or something.
Especially since he was so involved in helping this girl win the case. Yeah, but it wasn't the case. And that was all because of our other character that we have failed to really highlight, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
Karen's interesting, right? She, to me, represents the archetype, especially in this mid-2000s. I feel like before we got really, let's just say, terminology based in our society. She kind of represented like the ambitious career woman that was finally getting her break. And so she really had this mentality of like any means necessary. Because she also knew like there were frauds on this case, but like, that's not good for the shareholders if they got to start paying out and, PR.
Mm-hmm.
I found her character to be very like one-dimensional though. Like it was just about power. Like there was no extra depth to like why she was doing what she did. Maybe that was the intent, but I think with any good villain, like a good villain writing, like a good villain setup is like you kind of understand their thinking. It just seemed like she was just like a ruthless sociopath, like at times. I mean, really, she's just saying, take care of Arthur and then take care of Michael. Like I will say that joke at the end was funny when Michael's like, we want to go, my car. Because it blew up. I was just like, that's good witty writing. And then I cracked up a little bit, but that's jumping ahead. But I that was a critique I had of the film, is like, they made the boogeyman's look really boogie, like too obviously, which okay, that's corporate America, but usually like it's not as clear cut. There's like inner motives, and there's feedback loops and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But going back to Michael Clayton, what did you think of how they set up the film where it starts with the car? They did the old technique of like it starts in the future, but then you get the whole up to that point. Because the opening is the car blowing up, and then like you go back in time.
But I'm generally a fan of movies that start that way. It's like, okay, at that point.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's good. Like I don't mind the start technique. It's just I always find it interesting of like, could they have done it without it? Like, because the movie's very linear.
I mean, you don't really need it, but it works. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it.
Because when I think of like a film like that takes it to the next level, it would be like Memento, where they use the time thing as a way to tell the story.
Sure.
But this is kind of like just a way to like get you engaged, like, oh, what's happening, and then like you just follow up to that point.
It's like Amores Perros, where you had like 3 different storylines all converge.
Yeah, that was good too. One of my favorite films. But anyways, one of my favorite scenes I do want to talk about. Huh?
So that might be pod worthy doing that movie.
We haven't done Birdman yet. Anyways, but one of my favorite scenes actually of the film is when he's helping that guy who ran over the bicyclist at night. And he's just like,
oh
yeah, that was one of my favorite scenes. It was just had that fixer, like I thought you were the guy that solves the problems. Like I am, but this is not a problem that you can just like solve. Yeah, we can all. They basically trying to tell him like we can only mitigate the damage here.
Yeah, we can only do so much. And then he's like, look, he's like, the police are going to call. I love how he goes through the analysis where the guy realizes slowly how screwed he really is.
Yeah.
He's like, they're going to look, they're going to like ID it to a certain paint. It's going to match yours. It's going to be your. He's like, and the police love hit and runs because they're clean and quick. And I was just laughing. I was like, damn. I was like, this guy's just like systematically just destroying this dude and telling him, you know what, there's nothing I can do here. The best I can do is get you a good defense attorney. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that scene.
Because I think what's implied is like, because probably how he was told by the law firm and like, is like, this guy can solve anything, you know? Yeah, he's helped us in so many shady areas, but like he said, like, he was actually, like, we skipped over this, but his brothers, Michael Clayton's brother, is a cop in this story, and also apparently it's alluded that he was a cop once, or he was a cop way back, but he has a law degree, so he works both worlds, and that's how he made his niche. What's very interesting is that, like you said, with that scene, what I liked about it specifically is like it highlighted how like both the law firm and this client thought he could just like wave problems away. And when you see what, like you said, when Michael Clayton breaks it down, is that like he doesn't exactly wave problems away, but he bends the rules so much where it looks that way sometimes to, I think, the firm, because the firm is always saying like he's our guy, he deals with the hardest problems, which are like the ones that are kind of unsolvable usually. And like dealing with Arthur or this case, and like I liked how this was like a reality check for the client, that like this guy can't just make crimes go away. But if there was an angle, like let's say like there was no recording, or like you said, maybe the car was not his and it was actually like for some reason stolen or whatever, there was some way out, he would be able to push that angle. But there was no out here, so but like maybe other people wouldn't do that. I think that was also interesting about that scene, is that like it showed like he does work in the gray, but he doesn't just like rip up the law, if there's an avenue to get out, he will, but if there isn't, too bad, and so that guy was cooked. And so that's why I like that scene, because it was very multifaceted with like his character, the perception of his character, and the reality he works in. And that's why I think it's probably my favorite scene of that film, is that specific one.
I agree. Well, I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's up there for sure.
You have one that you like more? The ending, maybe? The ending was pretty cool.
The ending was great, how he just set her up. I did like that. That's probably my favorite. She's like, he's like, I'm a lawyer. Basically, he's like, you didn't have to kill me. You could have just given me money. And then
I know, I was dying because that works in real life.
I was like, wow.
Like, she didn't know like he needed the money. He might have taken it and be like, I'll shut up now.
Probably. That's what I liked, was this character was not super morally clear cut either. Michael Clayton.
Yeah. He was just like, he might have taken, you think, oh, he might have taken that money in a different part of the story, but it's too late now. You try to kill him, he's gonna gut you.
And he did. He gutted her.
And that ride off the cab is just rolling off. I was just like, that is dope. I mean, his character is like is like the character of this film. Like, because when you think of the supporting cast, yeah, they're strong, and you think of Arthur or Karen, but outside of that, like everybody else is pretty minor, and like they just have bit part pieces,
Yeah.
What did you think of the depiction of the law? That version of corporate law?
What exactly do you mean?
Do you think it's embellished? Do you think it's realistic? That kind of
underplayed, to be honest.
Play. Oh, okay, that was good. Elaborate, please.
No, I mean, come on. You and I have heard of. It's crazy. Even like you go to the financial crash, right? Yeah, this is playing into next week's episode. But I mean, people who have money or who do shady things, they generally get off with lesser sentences because their counsel is crazy big. And yeah, they'll have like, even in the show Billions, right? When they're trying to shut it down, and that's a very embellished show. But in that world, there's this guy who's like money obsessed, like hedge fund manager, and assistant district attorney, I think, who really wants to take him down. And so they're negotiating a deal, and they're like, you got to pay $1 billion settlement. He's like, and they're just talking smack to one another. He's like, $1 billion? We'll make that up in 6 months. And it's just like crazy at that level. And it's like, it doesn't matter to a lot of these corporate entities at the end of the day because they'll just make money back. You see it all the time with like even big pharma. It's the same. If you have money and resources, it's kind of easy and to cover up some shadiness. That's basically what DuPont Chemical did with like a lot of their water contamination, which I thought was sort of inspired by this, but then I think also like the Monsanto lawsuits probably inspired this film too.
I think so. I think more the Monsanto
Yeah,
one probably is my bet.
yeah.
The interesting underplayed.
Oh, well, what do you think, Chris? Do you think this did it justice in that world?
I
Do
mean,
you think there's less shadiness? Like the world is more
all I'm
utopia?
gonna say, as
No, no,
somebody
no.
who,
Enlighten me. You
as
asked
someone who,
the question.
wait, hold on, as someone who doesn't like
No,
have like
no, no,
all the facts,
no.
and I don't live in that
I'll
world.
take Chris.
I need to be educated on the topic still,
I'll take
so
Chris.
I'm not an
No,
opinionated person.
no.
Next week you'll see me go off. But anyways, um,
So
but
really,
I will.
I think they depicted this accurately. That there wasn't even more shadiness that goes on in certain cases.
I think I think it's a bit embellished in the sense of the fixer angle all the time,
The
but
fixer, yeah. But I'm saying in terms of some. Oh. Are you asking basically with the methods that these people used?
that and as a whole, the film, because the film is trying to portray a certain way of corporate law, which I'm not so sure that's how it happens, really. I
Yeah,
think,
I'm not so sure. And I thought in yeah, I guess I wasn't sure in terms of the tactics they used in this film. Like killing people and things like that. I can't say that. I mean, I have no evidence for that. I don't think that's a tactic that's readily used in corporate law to try to get rid of their problems or sweep them under the rug. But a lot of these people are. It's more that they're willing to settle, and I think what it is they're concerned with a PR angle and they wouldn't settle for like 6 years. I think a lot of companies would rather settle quickly because they don't. They'd rather just be done with it, and so you're not paying crazy like law fees, and
yeah,
then
exactly.
they can just make it up easier. But yeah, I'm dude with certain cases like the DuPont chemical lawsuit for like PFAS water contamination. Yeah, there's a lot of shadiness that goes on that a lot of these corporate law firms they tend to help them cover it up.
Yeah,
Uh, it
I
happened
actually,
in our hometown back in. I don't know if you're aware of this, Chris, but like back in the '80s, in our hometown in San Jose, IBM and a couple other semiconductor companies, they had crazy water contamination with, I think it was tetrachloroethane, was found to be leaking from their waste reservoirs in the bottom. There was a crack, and it seeped into the underground water, and it ended up causing a couple communities, I think in South San Jose and in Mountain View. It caused a lot of people to become infertile. So they were basically these chemical leakages or this leaching into the waterways. It made them sterile, so they couldn't have kids.
yeah, you've told me. I know this because you've told me 3 times, I think. The I no,
Yeah,
so to answer your, go
we had
ahead.
a family friend.
Unfortunately, a victim of it.
Yeah, their sister couldn't have kids because
That's
she lived
brutal.
in like one of those neighborhoods. Yeah, and so they found out they were like, wait a second, no one in this area is having kids. Like, what's going on? It's
That's
like they're all
terrible.
become sterile.
No, so to answer your question, I do think there's one aspect of this film that is, I think maybe didn't even bother exploring, and it was something that, to do a contrast, something that I think the show that covered the opioid crisis with the secular family did. The role of like the regulators, how they're in cahoots often with the companies, and actually they are the legal shield sometimes to protect companies that are solely driven by profit margins and innovation.
Oh, what are
Um,
your thoughts on the connections to big hedge funds and rating or big banks and ratings agencies?
I got that. I mean, let's wait till next week, dude. But what I mean in this movie that's dealing with chemicals, right? There's a show on Hulu that dealt with the opioid crisis, and that's covered there. I think a little bit better how the FDA basically. I mean, I have to say the truth, like they're pretty much bought off. And because and they do it not through like direct payments, right? They just leave the position and suddenly they are a highly paid consultant at X company. So and that's how they get their payday, their golden parachute, as they say. But yes, we saw similar things with the rating agencies and the banks where everything was legal because they would package the credit default swap and it would look good on the superficial paper.
Mhm.
And then the rating agency would say this is a AAA loan, and then not ask any questions, and then also take cushy jobs. And the SEC is the same way. Oh, SEC guy rolls off the position, and suddenly he's at JP Morgan making 500K. I'm like, okay, like that's totally legit. But it's the same thing that happens with the obviously other regulatory
Oh
agencies.
yeah,
I
that's
think in this
all.
film, this is missing. It's always like obviously maybe the law, like the
You have
law
no
firm.
government angle in this one.
Yeah, which doesn't make sense. If this is a high profile case with carcinogens, there's no way in real life that's not in play.
Sure.
And I think that's a big miss here. And I think that's to answer your question. I think that's where I agree with you, where it's underplayed, because that's a real thing. Like that's not like we live in La La Land if you think that does not happen. It's not just corporate entity and the lawyers, and the plaintiffs. No, there's a regular. These things don't go to the market without some regulatory play. It's not
Right.
it's not the crypto market. But yes, I would agree with your point. I just in a different kind of angle.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, so I misconstrued your point. Like, yeah, I don't think like the tactics that this law firm used in the fixing, like it's to that degree.
It's good for the film and it makes it dramatic, but it's just they use just paperwork and legalities. Yeah, it's legal. This is technically legal. This dosage, you approved it. It's legal.
Right.
But this dosage is lethal. we don't care. But that is it's unfortunate how they do it. And we've seen a lot of scrutiny of the FDA in recent years too, with the opioid crisis, with the vaccines and stuff. So it's all they're not infallible. I guess that's the main point.
Gotcha.
And I think our media and our filmmaking tends to, I think it's changing now because there's been some big misses, but historically they've kind of let them be. But I think that changed really with the financial crisis and also with the more recent. I think it's been more of the last 10 years where people they're more willing to depict. Because I don't think you would have seen such glaring depictions like even 2007, like they chose to admit it. It might have been more of a factor if they're remaking it for now. But yeah, I'm trying to think of any other scenes that I really liked, other than the ending. That one scene where he's doing the hit and run. The Arthur suicide's huge. What do you think of Arthur? What do you think of Arthur?
His character was just weird, but I
I
mean,
know.
I think he was just having a mental breakdown because he realized like how much bad that they were doing.
Yeah, and then also like the Michael Clayton's brother, like he's there and he's the reason he needs the money, but it's not really like explored
It's kind of
deeply.
like a storyline that you don't really need. Like, I mean,
You didn't need scenes. You could have like dialogue about like I know money. Like we would have gone the gist.
Yeah.
We didn't need a scene with the brother. I'm like, okay.
Like at the dad's like birthday or something. Like you didn't really need that.
Yeah, you didn't need that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, there were a couple. That was my feeling with this film. There were a couple great scenes, and then a lot of scenes that were not memorable.
Yeah, I mean that's what happened to me. Like, like it's like I watched the film, I really enjoyed it. I like it because it's like it's fast paced. George Clooney at his peak of his powers, and it's still somewhat. There's good dialogue in this film that you don't memorize, but like there's great lines. Like I said, the one about like where do you want me to go in my car, or like there's some other good ones too.
I did kind of die or like laugh a little bit at the scene where like you see they're looking at the video of the deposition, and Arthur starts stripping down to like his underwear.
Yeah.
That scene did make me laugh a little bit.
That was funny. Yeah.
This rocker at that point.
Yeah, there's great like line delivery in this film. And I think it's the talent of the script and also
So that's what I was going to ask you too. What was the purpose of Clooney going to the horses?
Oh yeah, that was like the one ambiguous thing.
Yeah.
I really don't know. It could just be like the push of it could be a Deus Ex Machina, it could be the push of God, as they say. But um, I think if I remember correctly, he was at a low point, right? Like,
Yeah.
Arthur had died, things was unraveling.
Yeah. He had the copy of what do you call it? Of the report.
Yeah. But it was oh yeah, that was another funny angle, right? Right. It was printed
10,000 copies.
10,000 copies, and then Arthur read the book that he didn't read. His son wanted him to read, remember?
Yeah.
I forgot what the book. What the book did it have a horse in it?
I can't. I don't remember.
I'm trying to see if I can find this real quick. I can't remember either, but I feel like it has something to do with like that. Like the horses have to do with that book.
I didn't put two and two together with.
Let me see. You're not the only one that have that question. There has to be
Other people.
I think the probably the most the most common interpretation is it probably has to relate to like his son, the book, and all those things. But I don't remember the book. See, if the book had a horse on the cover, then it would really.
But I can't remember. Anyway, it's kind of one of those things where it's not that big a deal. It doesn't really add to the story a whole ton.
It doesn't, but it's a metaphor. I think it for sure it's a metaphor. The three horses also might be like, I guess the three entities that are causing him problems. Maybe like his brother, his
In real deep
son.
now.
Yeah, I don't know, but it is there for like this one. I think is purposeful. Like sometimes we say like I listen to Atlanta guys and they're like, oh no, it's just to be funny. That was definitely like the horses thing was like that is definitely not just randomly placed in there.
No,
like yeah,
I agree with you.
So there's got to be some angle, but I would have to like listen to like director cuts and stuff. But I will say that like yeah, that saved his life, right? Because like he was about to get lit, and then he's just like, oh the horses. That was interesting. And then he runs in a panic. That was kind of realistic. He's just like sprinting, like I need to get out of here, like ASAP, dude. Like I'm gonna die.
Yeah, well, I would too. I'd be freaked out, dude. You survived.
The only thing to add is I probably start peeing myself. Like, oh my goodness, dude, this is too
intense.
intense.
I'm about to be done with.
As I run in the hills, because that would be. You imagine that you just get out of your car, you just whatever, you're just chilling, and then it just blows up.
Yeah, that's scary.
I'd be like, I'm gonna die any minute now, because you're thinking like they're not gonna find my body. Oh, he was smart. That's a good take. He was smart to jump his wallet and stuff, so it made it look like he died in there. But then they would like wait for they would obviously. The problem is that buys you some time, but like if they hose it down, they don't see a body in there, they're gonna know he's alive.
Yeah, but he made quick work of it.
Yeah, he was and then get out of there. Yeah, that was a good part too. Yeah, I mean, we can jump in. I figured this would be a short one because it's a very tight, to the point storyline of a guy. Yeah, this is not like a long, drawn out, philosophical or controversial film. It's just a tight film that like.
What was the movie we reviewed? Stalker.
Yeah, that we could talk for hours, dude. This film is like one of those like I would say very what I consider to be the Academy's go-to often, right? It has great acting, a tight script, it's to the point, it's nothing like controversial to a degree. And this is the stuff they like usually. I don't think it wins all the time, but this is stuff they nominate and it gets like, some love at festivals and stuff.
Sure.
And I think it's like Coda, right? We did Coda, and look, the film's okay, but I don't know how it wins Best Picture. Yeah, it is one of those. It's just like now that we've done so many of these films, I can just see which ones like are like Academy, which one are really like cool, independent, creative, and that's the ones I prefer. And then what are like mainstream junk food movies. Yeah, well, that's because of personal bias, dude. I'm going to separate that. Like, I gotta watch more indie films, dude. But yeah, I mean, this is personal bias. Yeah.
Yeah, well, you just love this the story and the script. Oh,
Did you see about Argent Call? Is that like my thoughts
by the way,
have changed? Sorry, go
finishing.
ahead.
I'm close to finishing a book related to that topic, which we'll discuss more next week. But
What's the title of the book?
all the devils are here.
Oh, by the Brittany. Yeah, I never got around to reading it.
Bethany.
Bethany, yeah, not Brittany. Bethany, yeah, I like her when I listen to her. But I'm actually, you know who I'm reading now?
I love listening to her interviews because she's just like, I don't know. I like the whole thing, and I haven't found many people with this who have been this niche. Is just like investigating business frauds. That's like her
Yeah,
shtick.
yeah. She's done 3 things, right? She did the financial crisis. Oh, she did Enron financial crisis, and then she has a recent, yeah, the fracking boom.
Saudi America.
Yeah, I haven't. That's actually more of a. Is that a book or an article?
It's a book.
It's a book. Yeah, I heard that was like the one. I haven't.
Which is interesting because I'd love to see her and Peter Zion talk. Because
So
Zion's
speak. Sorry, go ahead.
so Zion's a big, a fracking. He's a fracking bull, and she's more bearish on it. That's why I think it would be fascinating seeing an interview with those two.
Yeah, it is. It would be fascinating, and she's also written very critically of Elon and Tesla. But I've seen some interviews where she says like, because she's with actually something that you brought off air, like, is he a fraud or is he just a creative genius? And even she says she's confused at times because
I like her because she has a lot of nuance with how she thinks. She's like, oftentimes I just think there's a very fine line between becoming a fraud and a genius. And I was like, yeah, that's definitely true because you might have a break or two. And she brought up the case of Elizabeth Holmes. I mean, she's like, we all know she's a fraud, but what if they got a lucky break, like unbeknownst to them, and it ended up working? Then you'd be considered a genius.
Yeah, the book
that line is it's very hard to define. I was like, wow, it's a great way of looking at it.
Yeah, the book I'm chewing through is the Zion's new book, The End of the World as We Know It. Yeah. Which is it's riveting. I will say I recommend that book. It's so far it's been my favorite Peter Zion book. But but it came out recently. I just started it.
Good he's really good at storytelling. That is his gift.
Yeah, he's good, yeah.
He knows, like, he'll take a topic and weave and make a story out of it in a way that, like, is unlike kind of anybody else.
Yeah, he was on Sagar's podcast recently. That was good too. That was a good interview.
The realignment? That was a great episode.
Yeah.
They actually gave him some pushback, and then my favorite though was when they were talking about the Chinese demographic collapse. Sorry, we're going off topic, and we'll get back in a second. But they were going off the Chinese demographic collapse, and then one of Sagar's co-hosts was just like, "Yeah, I mean, I just want to give a little pushback, like the playing devil's advocate a little, but the Chinese say that they or the Chinese government say that they're trying to create like a Han identity with the Uyghurs, and that's what these re-education camps." And like Zion's like, "Are they? Is that what they're saying?"
Yeah, are they? Yeah, I was like, I don't think so. They come out like totally sterile sometimes.
Well, they're trying to minimize the reproductive rates of some of their minority groups. At least that's it seems to be like what they're up to.
Yeah,
but
anyway. Genocide.
Anyway,
and going back to the film, we can jump into final thoughts, I guess. I guess you can go first since it was my pick.
Sure, I think Clooney is an amazing actor. I mean, he without Clooney, I would have been incredibly bored with this film, to be honest. It was good. It was kind of a linear storyline. I like how they had they use the trick that we've seen in a lot of films where, you take a scene that's close to the end and you put it in the beginning, and then you kind of build up and show the story leading up to that point. The pace was good. I thought it was never like super slow, and nor was it like super fast. So I thought it had good pacing. The length was fine in this film. I did find myself a little bored at times in that there were just scenes that just weren't memorable. They seemed to be kind of, how we talk about like a tight script. or like no scene was wasted. A lot of this was just kind of like filler scenes, and that was what my one big knock with this. Like they could have cut out probably 15 minutes and sort of just explained in a tighter way, some of the like family scenes and things like that. Um, and obviously, like some of the stuff is like over embellished in some ways and underplayed in others when you're dealing with this topic of like, defending corporate, I would say like malpractice. Um, so like my final ratings for this film was a 7.
7, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think for me, I think
For
I like
Clooney's performance, I give him a 9.
I like this film. Like, I agree with you, actually. There's a lot of scenes where I don't remember much, and even when I think about this film, this happened to me last time too. Like, after a while, I forget the film. I just remember that I liked watching it, and George Clooney was awesome, and that to me does carry the film. So I agree on there. I think for me though, what I like about this film is like, as somebody who works in the gray myself, I really like this character because I think sometimes you can have principles and morality, but the real world isn't as black and white,
Hmm.
and you have to figure out how do you make it work. Because in the end, you get the sense that his character, Michael Clayton, is not like the monster like Karen is, or like other characters in this film are. He does questionable things often, if anything. He maybe not even the best father, and because maybe he the best ex-husband because he got divorced, I believe. But he's trying to like fit in this complicated world with the skills he has, and obviously he ends up making the right choice, even though we question if it was altruistic. But I think that's how a lot of people are in today's world, right? Like, you're trying to take what you've learned, whatever your parents taught you or society's taught you, and then you're trying to make it work, and then you learn things as you go. And like, life is a messy process. I know we started off air about other topics, but it's the same kind of like big theme of like messy topics. So I like that because I think that's how it is for most people, unless you're, really black and white and you
Hmm.
really think it's like that easy, to be, in our society. And so I like that aspect of it. I know like that's not like new or novel, but it is one of the films that's like just easy to watch, and like you get that, that point pretty quickly. But I do think like also like the whole lawyer thing, as somebody that got sucked into, let's say, okay shows like Suits and stuff, I do like the shady lawyer stuff, more than
Suits.
I think I even like the shady financial guys,
Hmm.
because there's a lot of shows around that too. But like the same reason, like I have this bias I've noticed, because same reason I love Succession is because it's that world. It's that world of like, even though they're bad people in that one, but
Hmm.
this one, like Michael Clayton is not as like evil in the sense of like, his morality, his moral compass isn't totally out of whack. But it's the same deal of like, they work in this gray, and they work more around like money, but like at the end of the day, it does impact people's lives. But like when you're in that, like, let's say, white collar criminality, you don't see it, right? You just see it on a piece of paper, right? Like when you murder somebody, you see like the gun, you see the blood everywhere. But when like you see that, like, oh, like, you let go 10% of your workforce, and this guy ended up hitting hard drugs, and then obviously,
Right.
you know, kind of like what happened with the opioid crisis, right? Like a guy hurt his back, suddenly he's on the drugs, suddenly his family's destroyed after 2 years. Like, it's a ripple effect that you don't see because you're just seeing numbers on the sheet, right? Or even numbers on the sheet don't mean anything because you don't see that impact. You just see like, oh, we have opioid death. But that
Right.
opioid death has a ripple effect. And so I have a bias towards those type of shows and movies that like kind of delve into, I think, like the under prosecuted criminality in our society. So I give it an 8 out of 10. And but I'll acknowledge my biases one time with these type of films, because it's the
Right.
same reason like I really like that Hulu show about the opioid crisis, and the same reason I like Margin Call, and it's the same reason I there's even average movies. Average movies that are not good at all, like Assault on Wall Street, that I will rewatch every now and then. Dude, that show is great, dude. That's the like real quick version of that is like a hard done by cop whose his wife has cancer. He gets foreclosed on because he can't pay the medical bills and the mortgage bills. His wife dies, and then he just starts taking it out on Wall Street, and like, let's actually, the movie was heavily criticized because they felt like it promoted mass shootings, because So I'm never gonna pick this film, but the spoiler here. In that film, he ends up just shooting all the brokers and financial guys in the building.
Dang, I haven't seen that.
So I understand the criticism because it's a mass shooting because he goes in there guns blazing and lights them all up. But look, you gotta watch the film. Like you understand how it's that breaking point. His whole world does unravel, and it's because of the financial garbage of and lies that he's told by Wall Street. You know, money goes to the moon and all that stuff. You know, and I mean, I listen to a lot of financial podcasts. That's what they say half the time. And also, I won't even say about crypto, or Jim Cramer, who is okay, I shouldn't say that because we're on a pod, but Jim Cramer, who's a controversial figure.
The tweets that I sent you.
Yeah. Well, no, the best is going to be that it's still on YouTube, everybody, for the audience. He's basically saying like, oh yeah, if you want to manipulate the price, you have to get on CNBC and just say the right things and then make the trade. I'm like, okay, you kidding me, dude? Like you're basically admitting to fraud. Like I don't know why you get to be on TV. But anyways, he says it's all legal. So it's all legal. So, but yeah, that's 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10. Solid film. I would say one that you can watch like casually, like it's a good like, hey, let's have a cool like chill. Let's just watch this.
I'm the harsh one today.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you're harsh when like you need to be, dude. Like I'm harsh when like
you have your biases.
Yeah, like what was the last one that you think I was overcritical? I can't even think of the last one.
That you were overcritical?
Yeah, I don't think so. I've always given fair ratings. Yeah.
Oh, I'm not so sure about that. I have to go back and look at the ratings. Anyways. The fact that you didn't give Sound of Metal 10 out of 10.
Neither did the Academy. They didn't give Best Picture. What did they give Best Picture instead? I forgot.
That's why.
Huh?
I said that's just politics. That's why.
Yeah, I don't really rate the Academy anymore. They've lost all respect in my eyes.
Yeah. Anyway, do you want to close it out? Or do you want
me to? I'll close it out. I can close it out. So thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe. And please leave some comments. I know our viewership has been increasing. No subscribers, but I see more unique views. So, but they're all for Kingdom of Heaven. So
it's a good pick. It's always the blockbusters. Yeah. We got to do like a Marvel movie.
No, I'm not doing a Marvel movie. I'm not picking one. So good luck with that.
Oh man, yeah, I think you would hate me if I picked the movie like that.
Well, if you pick like one that I could stomach, like Spider-Man or Iron Man, maybe, or Black Panther. But if you pick like the random Thor one, I'm gonna be like, yo, what are you doing, dude?
Hulk.
I'll be like, what are we doing here? Like, that's the pod has a theme. Serious filmmaking.
Actually, we never. Oh, there is one that I wanna review, but it's a superhero movie, but it's more unique. You haven't seen them.
Which one? No, I've not seen that one yet. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I totally forgot about that one. We're gonna put that on the pod. I think you'll like it.
We still gotta do Hereditary. I gotta get around that pick.
Well, at some point.
I like how you're not excited, but you gotta watch it like at midnight, dude. It doesn't work if you watch it during the day.
It's gonna be broad daylight when I watch this.
No, it's gotta be dark and it's gotta be alone and it's gotta be actually ideally it's also like during winter, so then maybe a stone hits your window.
Stone hits your window. If it does, I'm gonna freak out a little bit. Oh man. All right, cool. Well, anyway, if you have any recommendations for movies that you think we should review, please let us know in the comment section and we'll be sure to get to them. Anyway, until next time.